the E2 investor visa point of view, franchise investment definitely has distinct advantages. Number one is for most E2 visa applicants, you have to have a face-to-face interview with a visa officer at the US Embassy in your home country. And the performance of the interview is a critical factor in the visa decision. Now, what I found from many years of specializing E2 visa is that clients who have gone through the franchise training before the interview are much more confident, knowledgeable, and able to communicate about the business in a very professional and detailed manner in a way that impresses the visa officer. Then, of course, results in a much higher probability of E2 visa approval. Even folks that don't have a lot of business background, that kind of support and training that is gained before the visa interview gives the applicant tremendous advantage at the E2 visa interview stage. And in addition, the immigration officer oftentimes are looking at the credibility and the probability of success of the business presented in the E2 visa application. With a franchise investment, and you look at the FDD, franchise disclosure document, there's several elements that contribute to that higher E2 visa probability. Number one is what I mentioned earlier, clause 19, where if the franchisor shares strong average franchisee performance, that's a big advantage for E2 visa success. Number two is clause 20, which shows the growth rate of the franchise brand, where if the franchise brand is experiencing strong growth rate, that's a validation of the business model. People are not going to invest in a brand unless they feel pretty good about it, feel pretty confident about it. Same thing with the immigration officer, when they see that strong growth trajectory of the franchise brand, is a validation of the high probability of success of that franchise business model. And lastly, under the FDD clause 7, you have an illustration of the recommended investment amount and a layout of how the investment amount will be expended to start up this kind of business. That's also very helpful and advantageous for the immigration official because they're trying to determine if your investment amount is adequate and appropriate, and are you spending it in the right categories. That's critical for E2 visa success because without a franchise, basically, you're presenting that with no validation. An immigration officer basically has to trust your presentation on face value. With a franchise investment, clause 7, it's a validation corroboration of everything you've done to establish the franchise business because it's according to the recommendation of the franchisor. That all adds together to have a stronger E2 visa case. That's why my franchise E2 visa cases tend to have the easiest visa interview in most cases because of these advantages that I've just illustrated.